Tonight on Sports Paws, it was the last game of the regular season for the women's lacrosse team on Saturday. Is the team headed to the playoffs?
It was senior day for the men's lacrosse team. Did the team end its two-game losing streak?
Plus, we have a live interview with a freshman infielder on the softball team.
And we try to decide who's been the MVP in Quinnipiac Athletics this year. Lots going on. Sports Paws, here we go. Welcome inside Studio 125. I'm Randy Del Valle.
And I'm Katie O'Keefe. And Randy, it's been quite a year producing this show with you. It's weird to take the other side of the desk tonight. We start tonight with lacrosse on the women's side. Let's roll the tape. The team played a hard-fought game against Monmouth in the rain before the Easter holiday on Saturday. There was a lot to talk about heading into Saturday's MAC matchup between the Quinnipiac Bobcats and the Monmouth Hawks. Allison Kuhn was 1 goal away from 40 goals in her career, which is quite a milestone for the player. Here we'll take you into the first half. Less than 3 minutes into the game, we get a Hawk goal by Jenny Staines. She opens up this game. We're scoring her 31st goal of the year, which sends the Hawks into a 3-0 lead. Then we get a Bobcat goal by Brenna Fitzgerald. She gets a look on the free position shot and makes it. That was 1 of 2 in this game. Then here you'll see a little bit of passing behind the goalie. The ball eventually finds Allison Kuhn, and she whips it past the Monmouth goalie, and that was her 40th goal of the year. She becomes the 10th player in program history to score 40 goals in a season. Right now it's a 3-3 tie, and despite that milestone, Monmouth, here you get a drop knee goal by Monmouth by Nicole Serarso. You see her with the hat trick there. That shows a lot of grit. Monmouth coming into the second half, they're up 11-4. But Quinnipiac comes out starting off pretty hot. There you get a goal from Quinnipiac's Megan Swazlowski, and she cuts the deficit from 11 to 5. Quinnipiac went on a 4-1 streak, but eventually lost, couldn't make the comeback, and lost 19-12. Here's Quinnipiac head coach after the game.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking a lot about, 10 seniors leaving. That's, you're losing, your team's different next year. There's some big shoes to fill, and the pressure's on, but all good pressure and not to take it for granted.
And after another weekend of play means a new list of the MAC standings. Here you'll see them up on your screen. Quinnipiac took 7th, and even though they lost this weekend, they did move up 1 spot from last week's 8th spot. This loss ends Quinnipiac's chances of making the playoffs since only 6 teams advanced and QU came up just a little too short.
For more on the women's lacrosse season end in loss, we welcome Q30 women's lacrosse beat reporter Izzy Agricola. Izzy, what's going on?
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to be here, but Quinnipiac women's lacrosse is not excited about the end of this season.
Izzy, what's been the biggest problem with Quinnipiac this year?
Well, that's a question that a lot of people have, because on the attacking end, you're seeing a lot of scoring, but there's also a lot of goals against, and that becomes a defensive problem. There's a lot of grit in each individual defender, but we really don't have a cohesive defensive core. One thing that I think could combat this is a zone defense, also known as a backer D. This provides more support on a second line of defenders for the defender carrying the ball, covering the ball carrier. I think this would help a lot on crashes and one-on-one drives, which were a lot of the goals that came this year against the Bobcats.
Now, Izzy, part of the problem is definitely not because of lack of talent here. You got Allison Kuhn on the team at the attack and Sammy Walters in the starting goalie. Izzy, what will this team do without these 2 players?
I mean, Kuhn has been such a big part of this Bobcats team. She had 43 goals in the season and was tied for 4 in leading scorers in the MAC. She has big shoes left to fill, but I think Megan Swazlowski can do this. She has great chemistry with Kuhn on the field. She has 33 goals on the season. I think she can take the leadership that she learned from Kuhn and apply it with supporting members being freshmen Maddie Deegan and Gabby Beckett, who both posted multi-goal games this season. And then as far as replacing Sammy Walters in net, Ali Kelsey, who is the backup goalie, has a lot of experience, as head coach Tanya Kotowitz has been doing an alternating game where one goalie starts the game and the second goalie ends the game. I think with a strong defensive core, Ali Kelsey can really show some stuff in the back half.
And one player that we hadn't seen much this year was Ashley Bulabinski. She went from scoring 29 goals last season to only 8 this year. So why wasn't Bulabinski on the field more?
I mean, I think everyone was surprised not to see Ashley Babinski on the field. She was second in Quinnipiac goals last year. She had 50 goals in her first 2 seasons. But head coach Tanya Kotowitz explained it as just fitting the pieces together and seeing what works. But with Allison Kuhn leaving next year, I think Ashley Babinski has a great chance to have a comeback season.
And it is the end of their season, but moving forward, there are teams making the playoffs. So you got 6 teams to choose from. Who do you have winning it all?
I mean, I think a clear pick is Fairfield. They have an 8-0 record in the MAC, and they've had a really consistent season. But it's not as clear and cut as a perfect record because most of the games in the MAC against Fairfield have been close games. Most of them are within a margin of 5 goals. So I think teams like Monmouth, Siena, and Manhattan have a chance to beat them if they just score a few goals. But as of right now, I'm picking Fairfield just because they've been so consistent this season.
All right, we'll just have to wait and see if Fairfield pulls it off. Great stuff, Izzy. But before we let you go, Sports Paws sent out a Twitter poll asking fans what grade they would give the women's lacrosse team on the end of their season. And as you can see from this full screen here, we'll pull up the Twitter poll. The votes are pretty heavy on the failing side. You'll see that most people voted for C or D. That's 87% of the people said that. And since we have this team expert with us, Izzy, we'll ask you, do you agree with the majority here?
I really think it's a little harsh. I mean, looking at their record, it improved a lot from last season. The attack put great numbers up. So I would rank them at a solid C. I mean, improving in MAC play from last season, I really think you have to give them a higher grade than a D because they've had such an improvement. So I think they have a big chance to up their grade next season.
Thanks, Izzy. As always, great work.
Now moving over from the women's lacrosse team to the men's lacrosse team, where the team was in a 2-game losing streak coming into Saturday's game. Did Quinnipiac come out with a win against Monmouth, or did it extend its losing streak to 3 games? Let's roll the tape to find out. So a senior day in Hamden, and it's the last game for a few seniors, Mike Fletcher, Foster Cuomo, and Matt Frost, along with others. So we're going to take you into the first quarter action here. Quinnipiac already up 3-0, and senior Mike Fletcher gets in on the action, bar down, past Noah Lowe for his first goal of the game. Quinnipiac up 4-0. Going into the second quarter, Monmouth making a comeback. Zach Clemente gets a shot past Nick DiMuccio for the goal. QU up 5-4 at the half. Going into the third quarter, Quinnipiac up 6-4. Jake Thompson gets a pretty assist to Mike Fletcher for Fletcher's 4th goal of the game. QU up 7-4. And now we're still in the third quarter. Foster Cuomo gets in on the action, falling down. He gets to go off. He puts Quinnipiac up 8-5. And now we're going into the fourth quarter. Foster Cuomo back at it again, and he gets back up and scores a 6th goal of the game after being shut out the previous 2 games. QU up 10-7. Quinnipiac goes on to win this game 10-9. John Surratt and Aaron Robinson had the rebound after the game.
I'm John Surratt with Aaron Robinson at the men's lacrosse field. Well, after the men's lacrosse team won 10-9 against the Monmouth Hawks after losing 2 straight. Now, Aaron, what made this team be able to bounce back after those 2 straight losses?
Yeah, I think a big part of it was being able to score early. Obviously, Foster Cuomo had 2 goals in the first 2 minutes of the game. Then he was able to add another one, and he had 3 goals before the end of the first period. When you're able to jump out on the team and get an early lead, especially a team like this with so many weapons, I think it definitely, puts that thought in the other team's head, like, dang. But I think confidence-wise, it's definitely big for them to be able to get out to an early lead, and then defensively, they were able to keep Monmouth, at bay for most of the game.
And now you talked about Foster. Past 2 games, in those 2 losses, he didn't score a goal. Now this game, he scored 6. What made him be able to bounce back today and get those 6 goals?
Yeah, I think, just seeing the ball go through the net, I think being able to get those first 2 goals was really big for him. And then obviously, playing with Mike Fletcher, playing with Jake Thompson, other attacks that are, very talented themselves, also midfielders like Frost and Will Abbott. I think having so many weapons on one team just is very hard for defense to combat. So, one of those guys, obviously Thompson today didn't have his best game, but, Foster and Mike Fletcher were able to pick up the slack. So I think all those things combined, I think, were factors that were able to allow Foster to be effective today.
And Nick DiMuccio, freshman goalie, had 14 saves today. What's been making him become a better goalie throughout this year?
I think just confidence. I think at this point in the season, he's no longer a freshman. I think a lot of times in sports, as your season goes on, you get that experience. I think now he's starting to play with some confidence. He's made a lot of big saves. Today he had one, huge save when they were a man down that led to a goal by Mike Fletcher in the 3rd period. So I think just being able to make timely saves and being able to get confident, I think he's hitting his peak at the right time. I think he's doing a great job.
and Coach Mason Poley talked about Nick's impact.
His consistency throughout the year has been phenomenal, and I think the most impressive thing is with the number of 2 senior close defensemen, he still commands that group. And to have that respect and leadership from those guys in front of him speaks a lot about the character.
And after that win on Saturday, we have your weekly conference standings. Quinnipiac cutting it close with Canisius here. You'll see they're tied for 3rd, and only 4 make the postseason. The Bobcats have just 2 games left, only 1 conference game, which is Manhattan later this week. And now Canisius, they have 1 game left, 1 conference game left too. And they play Marist in that game, who sits atop the rankings. So that'll definitely be interesting to see. Quinnipiac taking on Manhattan and Canisius taking on Marist later in the week. But before they play Manhattan, the team's next game is tomorrow at Yale at 7. But we're going to take our first commercial break, and when we come back, we have a live interview with freshman infielder Alexis Otero from the softball team.
And the baseball team had a 3-game series against Siena. Find out how the team did.
Welcome to the WQAQ Morning Show. Dan Ball and Emma Spagnolo joining you here from the QAQ studios in Hamden. And Emma, it is that time of year again.
Welcome back to Sports Paws. Last Wednesday, the softball team welcomed the Marist Red Foxes to the Quinnipiac Diamond for a doubleheader. Quinnipiac lost this game 2-4 with 1 error and making less than half the hits Marist did. Marist scored twice in the 3rd and 4th innings, while Quinnipiac's freshman Lo Yarnell brought 2 runners in the 5th. But it was crickets in the last 2 innings from both teams.
The Bobcats bounced back in Game 2 of the series, winning 6-0. Quinnipiac scored 5 of its 6 runs in the 5th inning, 2 of those coming from the bat of freshman Alexis Otero after she hit a double to center field. Freshman Lauren King pitched a complete game shutout, allowing 5 hits and striking out 3. Oh, and here's a fun fact. Senior walk-on Jen Fay got her first career hit in the victory. And after splitting games with Marist, Quinnipiac sits tied for 6th with Fairfield and Niagara in the MAC standings. But the Stags hold a tiebreaker, which means the Bobcats wouldn't make the playoffs at the moment. At top of the conference is Monmouth, Marist, Iona, and Siena running out the top 4.
And now live in studio with Q30's Olivia Schuler, Alexis Otero is waiting by. Olivia?
Thanks, guys. Alexis, we're going to jump right into questions talking about the season so far. But first, tell me about the transition coming from high school into college and starting nearly every game that you've played in so far.
Well, the transition definitely wasn't easy coming from California to Connecticut. It's definitely a long ways away from home. But, I mean, having girls be from California and them being able to support me and, like, be alongside there has been, like, a home away from home. So that's been pretty awesome. I mean, starting in every game has definitely been, like, an amazing opportunity, and I thank Coach for that especially. But I mean, it's just been something very new for me, and I couldn't thank Coach or anyone else about that.
Right. So coming off a double-header split from the game last Wednesday, what does the team need to do in order to win the next 2 games against Rider?
I think we just need to go in being confident. That's been one of our main things, to just go onto the field knowing that we can beat the team that we're playing. Because if not, then we kind of tend to just get down on ourselves. So I feel like just being confident in our abilities and knowing that we can win is going to be our biggest asset.
Okay, and based off of stats, you're ranked number 4 with your batting average. So what makes you so successful at the plate?
Definitely pitch selection, trying to find the right pitch to hit, to drive out of the park. I mean, that's one of my biggest things. Seeing the ball, seeing pitches, getting deep in the count has really helped me.
Thank you.
Okay, and so Jen Fay just joined the softball team. She has previous experience on the basketball team. What has she brought to the softball team?
Jen Fay is amazing. She brings a winning attitude. She always brings 100% of her effort to practice, games. You know, she's always cheering us on, wanting to give all she has. And I mean, I feel like her attitude is one of the biggest things. She has been just a great support to us freshmen, even to look up to in the short amount of time that she's been here. So it's been great.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sitting down with me
Thank you.
today. So Randy, Katie, back to you.
Olivia, thank you. And on the baseball side of things, they had quite a couple of games this past week, 5, but we'll take you through it. The team's first game was nearly a week ago, last Tuesday, with a home matchup against Yale. The Bulldogs jumped out ahead early by the second inning, 5-2, but then Quinnipiac's Andre Marrero hit a double in the 4th, bringing in 2 men on base. Marrero then scored on a pass ball, ending the 5th with the Bobcats out front. The bats kept swinging in this one, and ultimately Quinnipiac came out on top, 12-8.
After its win against Yale, Quinnipiac had one more out-of-conference matchup. The Bryant University Bulldogs came to hand in riding that 12-game winning streak against Quinnipiac. That streak extended after the Bulldogs beat the Bobcats 14-5, scoring 9 runs in the first 4 innings. Junior catcher Gabby Cruz had 4 RBIs in that game. 3 of those came after he hit a 3-run home run in the 8th inning. The last time Quinnipiac beat Bryant was in 2011.
The third and final matchup for Quinnipiac was a date with Siena for a triple header. Quinnipiac could only take one of these 3 games, though. Siena won the first game 2-3, and Quinnipiac won the second game 4-3. In the last game, you would think both teams would be out of energy, but it turned out to be the opposite. This game went extra innings, with 4 runs apiece before Siena scored on an earned run error.
And now let's take a look at the MAC baseball standings. As you can see here on your screen, Canisius is in first with a 9-3 record, and Fairfield is second with an 11-4 conference record. And after the past weekend, Quinnipiac is now tied for third with Manhattan, as both teams are 8-4 in the conference. Marist, Monmouth, Iona, and Siena round out the top 8. It's time for another commercial break, but when we come back, the women's golf team traveled to Florida for the MAC championships. Find out if they came in first.
And we have an exciting end to the show tonight. Sports Paws put together a bracket of the most valuable player of the year. We got some experts to narrow down the choice, plus the top 5 plays of the week.
Welcome to the WQAQ Morning Show. Dan Ball and Emma Spagnolo joining you here from the QAQ studios in Hamden. And Emma, it is that time of year again.
Welcome back to Sports Paws. Thanks for sticking with us. We're now moving on to the women's golf team who was in Lake Buena Vista, Florida for the MAC Women's Golf Championships. The Bobcats fell short of their goal of winning the MAC after finishing second place. Senior Luciana Tovia and junior Alexander Suchin both posted final rounds of 74s, earning top 10 individual finishes. Quinnipiac will return all players from this year's roster aside from Tovia, who graduates as the program's all-time career leader with 145 birdies in 4 years.
Randy, that's wild. But the women's outdoor track and field team traveled to Auburn, Alabama for a 2-day invitational. The 2-day event consisted of 2 Bobcats earning top 10 in 2 separate events. Quinnipiac junior Megan Curtin finished in 8th in the 1,500-meter run, running it just under 54 seconds. On the second day, freshman Emily Young finished almost the same as Curtin. Young placed 6th, also in the 1,500-meter run, and also ran it just under 54 seconds.
The men's tennis team won its regular season finale 5-2 over Fairfield. The Bobcats improved their record to 4-2 in the MAC. The women's tennis team also took on Fairfield, and no surprise here, the team won 4-3, winning its 53rd straight MAC game, completing another perfect regular season in the MAC. Both the men's and women's teams are off until the 2019 MAC tournament, which takes place from April 27th to 28th at the Mercer Country Tennis Center in New Jersey.
And Randy, for the most part, that's all the talk of sports we have for tonight, but not without the top 5 plays of the week.
Well, Katie, 5 plays, 2 of us. I'll take the odds, you take the evens.
You're so smart.
So play number 5 comes from a men's lacrosse game against Monmouth. And who is it? Foster Cuomo. He's going to fall down right here. He gets back up, and he scores a goal. KU up 10-7 at that point.
Play number 4, women's lacrosse against Monmouth. Shannon Savage hits a turnaround shot and makes a score of 12-8. That's some grit right there.
Play number 3, women's lacrosse again. Guess who? Allison Kuhn gets a pass from Amy Hauser to tie the game up 3-3. And that's her 40th goal of the season.
I tell you, these athletes, they got some tough names. But coming in here at play number 2, we got a 3rd play from women's lacrosse against Monmouth. It's not from QU, but from Monmouth. Nicole Soroso would have a game as she scores that one and falls down.
And play number 1, guess who? Foster Cuomo. He's gonna fall down, and he's gonna get his one-handed shot off, and he scores the goal. And we're gonna take this in slow-mo.
Yeah, you see that here again. Look at him charge up.
And he gets the goal past the goal.
Insane. You do anything to get the goal.
Wins the game.
And now that we're all up to date on what's happened this past week, let's look ahead with our weekend preview. Pull it up on the screen. Second to last weekend of school, spring sports are either out of playoffs or finishing conference play, so let's see what's lined up. You got acrobatics and tumbling. You know, they're an underrated team here, I tell you. But they're in the NCATA tournament down in Texas. They'll play the semifinals against Fairmont State.
And men's lacrosse playing on Saturday against Manhattan at 3 p.m. And softball is facing Iona on Sunday at 12 p.m.
And baseball, too, they got some MAC opponent playing Ryder coming to Hamden on Saturday.
Baseball.
Huge game.
And Katie, it's been a year of a lot of talent in Quinnipiac athletics. But who's been the MVP this year?
Honestly, Randy, I can't decide. It can't be just the 2 of us. That's a good question I don't know the answer to. So Sports Paws created its own MVP bracket with the top 8 players of the year across all of the sports. And now we'll hand it over to Jonathan Banks and Shane Dennehy to pick a winner.
All right, Jonathan Banks and Shane Dennehy here, ready to break down the Sports Paws MVP. We had 8 phenomenal athletes in Quinnipiac athletics this year, and Shane and I are here to determine who was the most valuable player. We're going to start on the top left. Chase Prisky, captain of the men's hockey team, and Foster Cuomo of the men's lacrosse team. Shane, who you got in this one?
Jonathan, I think Chase Prisky is, a lot more valuable to his team than Foster Cuomo is. I think, Chase Prisky, he does it all for this Quinnipiac men. He did it all for this Quinnipiac men's ice hockey team. He led on and off the ice, each and every aspect of what he did. So I think that's why he's so valuable to the team. And I think, Foster Cuomo is in his right, very valuable. And Chase Prisky really showed how valuable he has been to this Quinnipiac.
So you're going to write it?
Yes, I am going to write this and have him advance to the next round.
That makes sense. Left here, Emily Roskoff of the rugby team, Melissa Samaskevich of the women's hockey team. Shane, you and I were talking a little bit before this. You might have an upset brewing or not. Who are you taking here?
I'm going to go with Emily Roskoff on this one. This might be a little bit confusing to people.
But you went with the higher seed.
I did. Skevich, for me, it's been so challenging. But I just feel like it's been downhill since then. I really haven't seen her live up to what she's billed as. I think Emily Roscoff really had to step up this year in place of Alona Marr.
And Melissa Samiskevich was the team MVP for the women's hockey team. And also Melissa Samiskevich, 55 more shots than anyone else on the women's hockey team. So she is valuable to her team in her own right. You could argue they wouldn't have made the playoffs without her. Your side of the bracket, you can write Roscoff in here to go against Chase Prisky in the next round. The top here, Cam Young of the men's basketball team, Allison Kuhn of the women's lacrosse team. Shane, last year you were a beat reporter for the women's lacrosse team. You got a lot of experience watching Allison Kuhn, also on the basketball beat, knowing Cam Young, two very talented transcendental athletes. Who you got here?
I got to go with Cam Young. Both of these athletes really have had, amazing stories. Allison Kuhn just on and off the field, not that typical athlete of just doing school, playing on the field, but Allison Kuhn really has had an amazing season this year and really has been impressive. But I mean, without Cam Young, this men's basketball team would not have had the past races.
Right, and that's important. Most valuable player. Kuhn, probably the most valuable player for the women's lacrosse team. She did score 43 times, but I'm in agreement with you. I got the red marker. I'm going to put Cam Young in here on this column. Back and forth between the 3 and the 6. Rashawn Daly of the men's soccer team, Erin McClure of the women's basketball team, both really two of the better players on each team. So Shane, who you got in this one?
Jonathan, I know I was talking to you before because I was like, I really can't decide. I ended up going with Rashawn Daly just because he was so important to the men's soccer team. I think Erin McClure is so talented, do not get me wrong, but the women's basketball team at Quinnipiac is so deep. It's going to be big shoes to fill for Rashawn Daly this year.
Yeah, and Daly scored or assisted in Quinnipiac in 5 of the last 6 games for the Bobcats. Erin McClure, you could argue Jen Fay's better than her. They're both different players, but Jen Fay did average more points. So Shane took the 3 seed here. Rashawn Daly is going to advance, and now we are in our final 4, and it's chalk. That is something that you don't usually see in an NCAA tournament, but we got chalk here. So we're going to go to the left side with Shane's green writing, Chase Prisky, Emily Roscoff. Who you got in this one?
Jonathan, this is an easy one. I got to go Chase Prisky. I mean, what he's been able to do these past 4 years has just been unreal. I mean, 2-time captain for the Bobcats has led them to so much success, and obviously you saw how important he was to this team late in the season when he was suspended for the Brown series. So I think he advances to the championship here.
The 2-3 here. Both players are really the guys for their team. Actually, you could argue Eamon Whalen was for the men's soccer team, but both guys so pivotal to their team's max success. Who you got going against Chase Prisky?
I got to go with Cam Young just because his scoring is just so unreal. I mean, to score 55 points in a game is unprecedented. So I think his value is much more important than Rashawn Daly's was.
All right, so we're going to put Cam Young here. So Cam Young and Chase Prisky. It's chalk right to the final here. 1 versus 2. Cam Young and Chase Prisky. I know who I got. Who do you have?
I got Cam Young in this one. His scoring is so pivotal. You can give him the ball and he will take over the basketball game. So I just think it's so important. And I know people will be like, oh, Chase Prisky, obviously you saw how important. And I just said, really saw his value. But Chase Prisky is tremendously valuable, but I got Cam Young.
So Chase Prisky would be my answer, but we're going to wrap this up here. So Prisky and Young. I have Prisky, Shane has Cam Young. We can't decide who's going to be the champion, but that's for you guys to decide on next week's Sports Paws Twitter poll. So keep it posted and keep it here.
So like Jonathan said, be sure to vote on that Twitter poll we'll be sending out later in the week. And on our final episode of the year, we will reveal who is the Sports Paws MVP. But Randy, I think that's all 30 minutes. It's been a pleasure hosting the second to last show with you.
There's nobody else I would have wanted to anchor with Katie on my first and last show.
It's crazy, Randy. And for that, be sure to stay up to date on all things Quinnipiac Athletics at our website at q30tv.com and our Twitter at Q30sports.
And a huge thank you to the entire producing staff for another great year and for my last year, which I won't forget. Our last episode of the year is next week, same time, same place. Good night, Bobcats.